Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. So what's gone on with residential development, condo development, our urban form, cities, etc.? Transit has been a big issue of mine, and we've had a couple of different shows on this because obviously COVID-19 has changed stuff, and the real estate market has changed stuff. And so I wanted to reach out to an organization that I see marketing condominiums in Mississauga and around Toronto quite a bit. In2ition is the name of the company, and we're joined tonight by Leanna Pronio, who is the Vice President of Sales. And I want to ask her some questions about what's happening with the real estate market, particularly the condo market, and marketing condos. Ms. Pronio, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Thank you. I'm well. Welcome to our show. So tell me, first of all, if you could, a little bit about In2ition. What is In2ition? Who is In2ition? And what is your role?
So In2ition is a project sales and marketing firm. We deal with developers and builders all across the GTA, and we work with them to bring projects to market and do the strategic planning and design and all the sales related to bringing their developments to market. So we've been around for just over a decade now. The company's founder is Debbie Kosick, and I'm one of the vice presidents of sales and help run the organization and deal with our builder clients.
And so your clients are primarily developers that are building condominiums and selling condominiums.
That's correct. Not only condominiums, but low-rise developments, which includes, detached housing, townhouses, all kinds of different built forms.
And so you're providing them with marketing advice, strategic advice, and sales services. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yes, that's exactly what we do.
Excellent. Well, then you're the person I want to talk to. So given what's happened with COVID-19, and, I'd love to hear sort of your assessment of it, but has it changed our market? Because we hear comments about people moving to the suburbs, people less interested in condos, less interest in condos downtown, maybe condos in the suburbs, that it's going to change the size of condos potentially, that people are going to be working from home. What about all that? Does any of that make sense? Has it impacted you and your business and what you're selling?
Well, look, COVID in general had an impact on the market as a whole when things first happened last year, in March, and this was all kind of new, and there was a lot of fear in the market. So things had, definitely come to a halt for a short period of time, but we did bounce back. And, as early as June, we were, back into the mode of selling just as we had done before COVID had hit. Thankfully for us, a lot of our sites were already set up with online and virtual selling programs. So we were able to facilitate presentations and continue with sales the way we would have pre-COVID. As far as general market, we know that when we look year over year, house sales have been down when we look at the pre-construction market. However, prices have continued to rise. As far as people looking to get out of condos and into larger homes and make that move up purchase, yes, we've seen some of that happen, but there's still a desire to get into the condo market as a first-time buyer, as an investor, and even as a move-down buyer. So those needs are still there.
That's interesting. Let me dissect that a bit. I could. What is a move-down buyer?
Well, that's somebody, or what we like to call a right sizer. So not necessarily somebody that's moving down for the sake of moving down, but things change in life. People that are were once a family or a couple, or maybe there's more singles that we've seen come into the marketplace and buying condos, or like I said, like people that are just downsizing and maybe they have an alternate property, a second property out of country, out of town. So a move down buyer could include any of those types of people who might have equity in their home that are looking to sell and downsize and maybe have a little bit more ease of living as far as the lifestyle that condominiums offer.
Really? And tell me about the first-time buyer versus the investor buyer.
Well, the first-time buyer, we know that they're challenged as far as qualifying for mortgages, and we know that we're hearing that that's going to become even more stringent and more restrictions that are just making it more difficult for them to qualify for those mortgages. So they're needing, parents to co-sign, things like that. So there's always going to be a need for, that smaller condominium size with the lower price tag that people can really enter the market and start to build equity.
And the investment buyer, tell me what's happened with the investment buyer. And so
Well,
this would be typically a pre-construction investment buyer, correct?
Correct. I mean, we see a lot of investor buyers that, they still believe in real estate as a safe investment. They know that they can put, between 5 and 20% down, within a year and a half's time. And that's going to secure, a home for them that's going to be ready in 3 years when they've got time for that, that investment to appreciate as that condominium is being built. So, and they're not always savvy investors that have a whole portfolio of units that they just continue to buy and flip. These are people that, are looking to think about their future, something to possibly downsize into one day, not ready to move into a condo today, but maybe it's something that they'll rent out, for future for their kids if it's near a school or something like that, and then make that decision later on if it's something that they'll flip, if it's something that they'll move into. So there's all types of different investor types.
The words that we hear about investment buyers is that often they're either foreign money that's coming to the marketplace, and or it's people that are buying to rent out on Airbnb, particularly if it's downtown near the entertainment facilities, and or that they're buying to rent, and rental prices are down. So tell us, what's happening to those different segments of the investor community.
Well, we did see that due to COVID that the rental prices were down more so in the core. The lying areas in the 905 weren't as effective, and that's on its way up to recovery anyway. And that's, usually tied to an influx of product coming to the market at once. But sorry, can you repeat that second part of the question?
I'm just interested in, foreign investors, investors that are looking to rent on Airbnb, or investors that are looking just to rent.
Yeah, it's not necessarily like we don't see a majority of them being Airbnb unless it's some type of, resort community or lifestyle type of community. So that's not necessarily the norm. But, by investing in a property and renting it out, that rental income is going to help pay down equity into your home and puts you in a much better position down the road when you want to, refinance or dispose of that unit and move on to something else. So it's not always foreign money, and it's not always an Airbnb situation. This is just true
investors.
True investors, people that want to own something that opens up, plenty of opportunities for them in the future. Like I said, whether that's something they're going to downsize to or something possibly for their children in the future. There's a lot of possibilities.
We're chatting tonight with Leanna Prono, who is the Vice President of Sales for In2ition. It's a real estate condominium marketing and sales company. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back more with Leanna in just a minute. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. We're chatting tonight with Leanna Pronio, I apologize, who is the Vice President of Sales for In2ition Realty. It's a organization that helps condominium builders, developers market and sell their condominiums and also other residential developments. And we've talked a little bit about the market and who's buying. But maybe, Leanna, I could ask you about sort of trends in the marketplace. So, I've heard some people talk about, because we're all working from home and we all think that we're going to be working from home a little bit more, we're all not going to go back even once we get herd immunity and the vaccines have played out. People are looking for either larger condos or condos that have got shared workspaces. What do you think of that? Is that a trend that you're seeing, or people are asking about, or developers are designing, or what?
Well, it's something that, we've always tried to work into our developments, because there's always been some component of people that work from home. So whether that's in the individual unit, trying to work in some sort of a den or just even a desk space. But as far as, we're in design meetings now for condos that we're going to be bringing to market in the next few months. And we're making a conscious effort and designing specific areas that have kind of breakout meeting rooms, areas where people can have private meetings. So even if they are in a smaller 500 square foot condo, but need to meet with somebody or just want to get out of their own four walls to, be productive or conduct a Zoom meeting or whatever it is, we're actually allocating space to those types of areas in our amenity spaces. And we're doing that very actively. So definitely an effort is being put more towards that than ever before. And even other, amenities such as swimming pools and fitness facilities, things like that. We're taking another look at that for, sometimes we look at these things and we stopped including them on some developments just because, the cost of maintenance and that cost is passed down to the buyer is just too expensive.
So someone told me that people aren't putting in hot tubs anymore, but because whether it's COVID-19 or just, general public health, people don't want to share hot tubs with anyone else. And so therefore no one's building hot tubs anymore. Is that true?
Well, I don't know if that's something that was really that popular to begin with. I mean, we, like in more recent times, like we have included that. Sometimes we'll have like a rooftop patio with a nice hot tub or two, but yeah, there's definitely going to be a shift in the way people look at how they're using their space, even once COVID is done, because I think we're all pretty, will be pretty scarred of what we've gone through and just a little bit more aware of, your surroundings and who you're sharing your space with.
So a lot of condominiums have shut down their fitness centers. Are they going to reopen, and are you still building fitness centers?
Yeah, definitely still a need to build fitness centers. Again, some people, I mean, there are people that will still like the ease of just working out in their own space. And I think so. I think those things will be controlled by way of, scheduling and proper, spreading out a little bit more than we used to. So I think that will come in the future. So we haven't really eliminated fitness spaces in any of our buildings just yet. I don't think we'll get to that point.
If I was working 9 to 5 in an office building, and then, X numbers of a week, I would go out to a restaurant or some other entertainment, and I came back to my condo just to, sleep and only have a couple of meals, I could live in a 500 square foot condo. But when you're working, and living and dining all the time, don't condo sizes have to go up?
They do, but unfortunately with that, what goes up is the price. So, I mean, it's all relative to who the buyer is. Again, talking about those move down buyers, who have maybe larger homes that they're selling and downsizing. Yeah, they're probably going to want to get something that's a little bit higher up in square footage. But when you're looking at investors that are, buying them to rent, or those first time buyers, or, a young couple, it's all relative to price point. People look more so at what they can afford and what they can qualify for a mortgage on, rather than, they need a certain amount of square footage. So I think people are just, not desperate, but, eager to get into the market, and, will make that purchase whatever makes sense to them. 500 square feet is a small unit, but like you said, if you have an active lifestyle outside of your condo, then it's great. It's a great place to rest. And
so what would be a typical average size of a condo today?
Well, I mean, the typical average size is probably around 700 square feet. So a typical condominium could have units that start at 500 square feet, go up to, mid 900 square feet, with maybe a few units, special units that are over 1,000 square feet. But again, being aware of what that end price looks like, you have to keep those unit sizes relatively small, depending on what market you're in, and, where you are, where you're building this development, and what, the prices are that you can.
What's the smallest condo size? 500?
No, I mean, there's been condos built with much smaller, but they don't have an actual bedroom. It's a bachelor unit. We've seen them in the 300s.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah, that's really a more lifestyle driven type of sized unit, depending on the area. But when you're looking at, especially in the 905, I mean, the 905 outsold Toronto for the first time in the last year. And in those areas, yeah, people are definitely looking for a little bit more space. It's not as, you're not as focused on amenities as you would be if you were buying downtown in the core.
Right. And what's the size of a penthouse?
We've designed anything from 1,000 square feet up to even 2,000 square feet. It varies. It could be anything. And again, we design buildings and unit sizes based on that market and who we feel our buyers are going to be and what, prices we feel that they can afford or would be willing to pay.
Right.
So
So
our
I
design,
interviewed someone who told me that, and this was a Toronto, not a GTA or suburbs comment, but that something like 75% of all the condominiums built had been within half a mile of a major transit stop. And so therefore access to transit was a key thing people were looking for. Is that something you see in the suburbs as well?
definitely. I mean, if you look at what's happening in Vaughan near the VMC with the subway that went in there, once that was constructed or on the way of being constructed, there was a huge influx of new condominiums being sold in that area. And it's still a driving factor, especially for investors, because it gives them security that it is a good investment because you do have that accessibility to transit at your doorstep. So that's always a major factor in this, in selling of a condo development. But then there's condos that come to market that, they may be close to a bus line, but not where, there's a subway or major transit at your doorstep.
And then there's a whole bunch of condos that are being built, some that I think you're marketing near Square One in Mississauga that don't have good transit now, may in the future. But what is it? The attraction to be close to a big shopping mall? Is that also a attraction?
It is an attraction, and because again, everything is walkable in that area. There's schools in the area. There is public transit in the area, not subway, but and yeah, just being able to walk. And don't forget, a lot of these condominiums, you're restricted on parking, so you're not always a young couple or whether a younger or older, people that have two vehicles. You're not always able to buy two parking spaces. I mean, it's not a guarantee at the time of sale. Sometimes, later down the road when the condominium is occupied and closed and everybody's living in their units, you can often rent a space from people, but it's not a guarantee that you'll have that. So it's important to have a lot of the amenities walkable, definitely. So that's what the attraction is in a place like Square One. There's tons of walkable amenities. You could get by without a vehicle.
And then we've seen this massive development in what's it called, Humber Bay Shores, by Park Lawn and near the Palace Pier. That's got to be attraction of lake views and access to the conservation area that sticks out into the lake, right?
Absolutely, and we're seeing a high demand in those types of properties now as well, where again, people are looking more for they might have moved out of the city or they've, maybe got a bigger budget now that they're working from home more and they don't have to commute. They've sold their house or their condo in the city and they want that lifestyle. They want to be able to be in a place where they can enjoy their weekends because they know that, maybe traveling isn't in the near future. So definitely, we're seeing a big demand, rise in demand for anything waterfront, anything style, resort style living is definitely one of the hot items right now.
You say that the suburbs outsold Toronto this year for the first time. Is that part of what's happened because of the sort of the movement from Toronto because of COVID-19, or was that natural and going to happen anyway?
Well, I think it's a bit of both, and I think COVID definitely helped in that. But again, you're looking at price point, and the 905, you can still get a condo for under $1,000 a square foot, which that's not so much the case in Toronto anymore. So again, it's looking at that affordability. And so I think by COVID kind of supporting that in a sense that people are now working from home, so why not? It's okay that I'm half an hour outside of the city or 45 minutes out of the city because I maybe only have to go there once a week.
Right.
So I think
hear that Collingwood and even up north on the 400 and 11, north of Bracebridge, and Elora and Barrie are all in demand, and so people are moving more than half an hour, 45 minutes out of the city.
Absolutely. And some people are buying those as second properties again, so they can have that, that little bit of a getaway on the weekends, and maybe, and gives them that sense of not feeling so trapped after the year that we've gone through. So yeah, you're absolutely right. There's a huge demand for those areas.
Tell me about technology in condos today. Are you putting in a whole bunch of new modern technology that didn't exist a couple years ago?
Well, I think in general, like, as far as the types of technologies we're putting in, a lot of these kind of smart home features where everything is, run from an app on your phone, as far as like a keyless entry, or, plate recognition when you pull into the parking garage, or, visitors coming to visit you, you can get notifications on the app on your phone. So those things have been, have been more so in the past few years, regardless of COVID. But with COVID in mind, a lot more thought is being put into having like dedicated areas, like I mentioned, the workspaces that may be separated by, glass or things like that, but also like sanitizing stations, just things that, we probably weren't thinking about a couple of years ago, or, even more than a year ago. Another big thing is the fact that everybody's shopping at home, everybody's shopping online. So
I've walked into a couple of, lobbies of condos, and it looks like a mailroom. The concierge is like drowning in parcels and constantly calling people to come down and pick up their food or their Amazon shipment or their whatnot. Do we have to redesign the mailroom?
well, we have, and we've done that already on quite a few projects that, again, are coming to market very shortly, where we've got dedicated parcel storage. Some of them even have cold storage for grocery deliveries. And that's all
What's that, cold storage? So like you're providing refrigerators for grocery delivery?
Yeah, there's companies that'll provide cold storage for food deliveries, and that's all part of that whole smart home integration where, rather than the concierge being the one to call you and come pick up your packages, you get a notification on your phone, and that your box or whatever is stored in a safe place until it looks better too, rather than walking into a lobby, like you said, with boxes all over the place. So that's definitely something that we've put into play in a lot of the buildings we're designing now.
What about bike rooms? Is that something that you're building?
Bike storage, yeah, that's always been part of the building design. Whether that's exterior in addition to interior bike storage, which is sometimes in the below grade parking garage near the storage lockers. Like that's been something that we've been doing for a long time.
Any other trends? I see a lot of these condos that are complete glass walls. Is that like the norm today?
I wouldn't say it's the norm, but yeah, definitely, like, there's always a desire for a lot of light. So where we can have the most glass possible, that's definitely something that we try to play into our designs. All depends on the building construction, I guess. But yeah, that's definitely something that people really gravitate towards, because especially in a smaller space, the more bright and light that you have
you're fooled to thinking it's bigger.
You're going to feel like it's that much bigger.
What about affordability? Lots of people say that housing is just unaffordable in Toronto, and it looks like it's going to become more unaffordable. What can we do to provide more affordable housing? And not just like cheap housing, social housing, but like for everyone affordable.
Well, I mean, that's where, mortgage qualification is going to continue to be a concern. So people entering the market, again, like these first time buyers, they have to rely on, co-signers, their parents, or somebody putting up that deposit for them. Like when you look at a condominium, pre-construction condominium, you have to pay a 20% deposit. Not everybody has that kind of a deposit saved, but maybe they do have a job that allows them to afford the payments, but it's coming up with that initial deposit that continues to be a challenge. So I think people have to be creative and being open to where they're willing to live. That's why the 905 has really, done so well, is because it offers, housing options when you compare it to the Toronto area. you can get a condominium for, less than you would pay in the city for sure. So I think that people just have to be open-minded to looking at other areas where they can, where they can get something, of value.
Some people think that supply is the issue, that governments just aren't approving enough developments, that it takes too long to get developments approved, that we need to do something to increase the supply of housing if we want to make it such that our kids can actually afford to live in Toronto. What do you think of that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that always seems to be a challenge. We work on developments, from the time of design, and, our consultation meetings happen, 4 years out from the time a building is actually built and closed and registered, sometimes even longer. And the development process for developers is quite lengthy. And, we've seen in the past a lot of developments that, just weren't able to be complete. And, a lot of that's due to just timing and the time that it takes for, something to get passed through the city. So, I mean, I don't know what can be done in that regard as far as city moving things along to approve these developments quicker. But,
I
there's
had one developer tell me that if you were developing in Toronto versus one of Toronto's suburbs, it was double the time for the exact same project, just because of slower bureaucracy. Do you buy that?
Yeah, I've heard that. I've seen that happen. I don't know that it's double the time, but look, there's a lot of, we've had the privilege of working with some organizations that provide, it's not assisted housing or anything like that, but it's affordable housing. And they, what they're able to do is offer mortgage programs that help, people that would otherwise not be able to buy. And they work alongside with the government to, where they've got access to these lands and they can develop these lands that the government owns. So I think if the government would align themselves with more of those types of organizations, it could bring a lot of product to market that would be considered affordable.
You've been in the real estate business, the marketing real estate business, for a couple of years?
Myself?
Yeah.
I've been in for probably 20 years now.
So you know it really well. And you've been very forthcoming in our conversation today. If you were appointed like the housing czar by the government to, improve everything, what would be your vision? What would you want to do?
Well, that's a loaded question. Well, really, look, I would look for, areas that really need development, areas that have the space to grow and develop, and putting that whole force in place that could facilitate getting something, getting these projects developed and brought to market. So I don't know if that's answered the question, but
no, it does. So the Urban Land Institute is having a big seminar on ministerial approvals or something like this, which is when the minister actually has the right to override local council decisions. And we're at a maximum now. And I guess it's because the province has decided that sometimes local councils don't approve more as quickly or as large as they should be. So I guess
Right.
what you're saying is, governments that actually play a more active role in getting developments approved is a good thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Well, what do you think? Is real estate going to continue going up? Is it going to stay flat, or are we going to have a crash?
Look, I've been, like I just mentioned, I've been doing this for 20 years, not always at this capacity, but I don't see a crash coming. I do see that, things will, it goes in waves. And I think that right now we're experiencing, I don't want to say a bubble because I don't believe that it's a bubble, but I do think that, once the lack of supply is no longer an issue, I think things will kind of flatline. And I think that, people like us that work on pre-construction developments, we have a real good handle on what's happening in the current market. So we're not looking to, just maximize prices without thinking about the long run and how we're going to sustain those prices. So I think that, I don't see a crash. I do see things maybe leveling off again. But I think it's going to continue to be hot for, the next year and at least. And I think that there's still a ton of product coming to market that's, again, in a lot of the outlying areas that'll be quite desirable for people that are looking to get into the market.
Leanna Pronio, thank you so much for joining us tonight and telling us a little bit about the condominium real estate market. If people want to check out any of the condos that you have for sale, is there a website that you can direct them to?
Absolutely. You can see all of our pre-construction developments at In2ition.ca, and it's IN2ition.ca.
In2ition.ca. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
We're going to take a break and come back with some more on the real estate market in just a minute. Stay with us.